the safety of rehearsals. Matt Close is the spokesperson for the Band Association of New South Wales, and he joins me now live. Good afternoon and welcome to you.
Good afternoon, Kirsten, and a good afternoon to all of our viewers as well.
Why are musicians in New South Wales so confused when it comes to the topic of rehearsals right at the moment?
Well, Kirsten, I think it comes from the fact that our health officials, who we agree are doing an amazing job in a lot of ways in an unprecedented pandemic, perhaps don't really understand the intricacies and the specific things that happen in a community band setting, and just how important those settings are for our community musicians right throughout New South Wales and indeed throughout Australia.
This has been sparked, hasn't it, by advice which was issued by New South Wales Health on social media a couple of days ago. Let's look at a tweet now from New South Wales Health so that our audience can see it. It says, wind instruments like saxophones, clarinets, flutes and recorders can spread COVID-19 if someone is infected. For now, they shouldn't be played near other people, and musicians playing other instruments should stay 1.5 metres away from each other and the audience. What does that mean to you?
Well, from a community musician perspective, the advice seems to omit guidance for a large number of other instruments. Brass instruments function differently to wind instruments, or woodwind instruments as we would call them in the profession. Then there are percussion instruments. There are also keyboard instruments. The restrictions in and around music in general in the community, be it community or even professional musicians, really does, in Band Association New South Wales' opinion, need to be very clear so that we can provide great advice to our community musicians. And we have about 5,500 musicians that our particular body represents throughout New South Wales alone.
And so in your view, does this tweet constitute a change in advice on what musicians can do in a rehearsal from what you were allowed to be doing last week?
Yes, indeed it does, Kirsten. We were of the impression and the understanding that if a community band, had a COVID-safe plan, and rest assured that all of our community musicians and bands are being very cautious, taking a conservative approach, social distancing in rehearsal rooms, hand sanitizer, wiping down surfaces with alcohol-based cleaning products, doing all of those things that we know are the new normal, as the phrase has been coined. But this advice seemed to shut all of that down, but kind of not quite clearly enough. It was specific for those three instruments and a little bit sort of looser than for everybody else. So we're just really seeking some additional clarity around that from the Chief Health Officer and Department of Health.
Well, tell me, what will bands sound like if wind and brass instruments simply aren't there?
Well, I think Simon and Garfunkel released a hit in the late 70s called The Sounds of Silence, and that is our greatest fear, is that community musicians will not be able to get together under any guise in any method over the next unforeseeable period of time, weeks, possibly months, and that would be a great would introduce other risks for some of our community musicians. This is their one outlet, their social gathering each week. It's how we stay connected. It's how we support the vulnerable in the community in a way that no other health service or no other community group can really provide that very specific support.
And so just finally, up until now, you say that you have been operating under what you believe to have been COVID-safe guidelines with quite a distance between musicians in bands. Has that had any discernible impact on the way that musicians rehearse or the sound that they produce?
Not in my experience, Kirsten. The wonderful thing about community musicians is that they're agile, they're flexible. And if the rules and the advice from government are to do it in a particular fashion, then we've got no concerns that our community groups would do it any other way. They'll make it work, and the music will play on. We just want to make very sure, as the governing body for this particular set of community members, that we can provide great advice and keep people safe, noting that the age range of our musicians ranges from quite young children 6, 7, 8 years old, right through to octogenarians and older. So it's a very broad subsection of the community.
Matt Close, hoping you get the clarity you're seeking very soon. Thank you for speaking to ABC News.